I followed my nanny after work, but the life-changing secret I discovered left me heartbroken. I will never forget the moment I chose to step into the unknown. My heart raced as I watched her leave the office, her scarf fluttering like a signal, pulling me in. Why was she walking so fast? What could be so urgent? I stumbled, breathless with curiosity, my mind racing. As I trailed behind, her figure blurred in the bustling evening light. People rushed past us, lost in their own worlds, yet I was captivated. Was she not just my nanny? She had always been my anchor. But now, shadows of mystery enveloped her. A knot tightened in my stomach. Could there be more to her than I knew? We arrived at a dimly lit alley, a place I would never step into. The air felt thick, pressing against me like a weight. I hid behind a dumpster, peering out with trembling hands. My heart pounded like a drum in the stillness. She paused, and I noticed her glance starting around, eyes scanning the surroundings. What was she afraid of? Then, from the shadows, a figure emerged. Tall, with a dark hoodie pulled low over his eyes. I felt an icy chill run down my spine. Who was he? My breath hitched in my throat. The gravity of the moment stole my voice. From where I stood, I could only hear muffled words exchanged between them. My heart thudded, each beat resonating with dread. Suddenly, she handed him something, a small object wrapped in tissue. My chest tightened. What was happening? I had been so blind all these years. I thought I knew her, thought I could trust her. Tears brimmed in my eyes. Betrayal slashed through me like a jagged knife. The darkness thickened, closing in, washing over me. Should I confront her? Should I run? My instincts screamed at me to escape, but my feet remained glued to the ground. I needed answers, but what truth lay beyond the surface? In that moment, everything shifted. I felt the world dissolve around me, and the air was electric. I was on the edge of something terrible and grand. My mind whirred with possibilities, but I was trapped. I watched as she turned to leave, the man's face briefly illuminated by a streetlight, revealing a jagged scar that seemed to tell a story of its own. My body trembled, caught in the chaos of confusion and fear. What have I unleashed by following her? Should I confront her with what I now knew? Or remain in the shadows, allowing the secrets to fester in silence? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I stood there, paralyzed behind the dumpster, the weight of betrayal anchoring me to the ground. My breaths came in shaky gasps, every inhale feeling like an intrusion into the trembling silence that enveloped the alley. I wanted to scream her name, to demand an explanation, but the words clung to the back of my throat, heavy and choking. As the dim light flickered above, illuminating the scene, the man leaned closer to my nanny. She whispered something I couldn't hear, a fragile exchange cloaked in secrecy. Something stirred deep within me, a blend of fear and yearning. The woman who had always known how to soothe my fears, my confidant in moments of despair, had slipped into this murky world, leaving me stranded on the shore of my own confusion. The alley stretched before me, dark and foreboding. But it was also a threshold, a divide between the life I once knew and this twisted, secretive reality. I felt as if I was teetering on the edge of discovery and innocence lost. When had her life become this web of shadows? My memories of her laughter, her careful reassurances, clashed violently with the image of her clandestine meeting. Suddenly, a soft rustle came from behind me, snapping me back to the moment. I turned, and a stray cat emerged from behind the dumpster. It brushed against my leg, a small gesture that, in any other circumstance, would have comforted me. Instead, it was a stark reminder of my isolation. Even in the company of a creature seeking warmth, I felt completely alone. I crunched down, reaching out a hand toward the feline. It hesitated before sidling closer, nuzzling my fingers. For a fleeting moment, the warmth of its body soothed the raw edges of my despair. But reality clawed back, and I pulled my hand away reluctantly, glancing back to the alley entrance. My nanny and the man were gone, swallowed by the shadows. As I retraced my steps, my mind churned with questions. What had she given him? Why was she meeting someone in a place like that? Was there danger? With every step toward home, I felt a rush of urgency, an unresolved yearning to confront her, to demand the truth. When I finally arrived at the apartment, the familiar scent of vanilla candles and freshly baked bread enveloped me like a warm embrace. Yet, the comfort was fleeting. Tonight, I felt like a stranger in my own haven. She was in the kitchen, humming softly while stirring something in a pot. The sight of her, the way she moved so effortlessly through the space, sparked both love and an aching dread within me. "Hi, sweetie," she said, glancing over her shoulder, her smile radiant and disarming. "How was your day?" I forced a smile. "It was okay. Just busy." She turned back to the stove, and I caught a glimpse of how the relaxed lines of her face belied the tension I had witnessed just hours before. How easily she could shift from secret lives to maternal warmth made my heart ache. Just as I opened my mouth to ask the questions tangling inside me, the doorbell rang, breaking the spell. She hurried to answer. Moments stretched, and I found myself leaning against the kitchen counter, heart racing, half listening to their conversation. Some part of me wanted to burst out and make sense of it all, but I remained paralyzed, empathy and suspicion crashing against each other like waves. The sound of laughter floated back to me, light and effervescent, a stark contrast to the turbulence roiling in my chest. I edged closer to the doorway, peering through the crack. A man stood with my nanny, his back turned to me. I couldn't see his face, but the familiarity in their interaction stirred something inside me, a pang of longing and confusion. In that moment, juxtaposed against the laughter and warmth, the door swung open wider, revealing not just the man but another figure beside him. My breath caught in my throat as the soft, warm light illuminated the scene, and I realized with dawning horror who it was, someone I had thought gone forever, someone whose return shattered the fragile reconciliation I had been unwittingly trying to build. The sight sent a jolt of disbelief through me. All the pieces I had so painstakingly gathered about my nanny's secret life slipped right from my grasp. I felt rooted to the spot, realization morphing into disbelief. How had I ignored the signs? Why had I let a moment of fear paralyze me from seeking the truth until now? And just like that, I was teetering again, caught in the chaos of uncertainty, staring into the instant potential for my entire world to unravel. The pieces of my heart felt scattered, and as I stood there, every question unanswered and every truth just beyond reach, I knew this secret would change everything once again. I didn't recognize the man's voice, but the familiar cadence of it made my stomach twist with anxiety. It had been years since I'd seen the person standing at the door, a specter from my past whom I had learned to file away among my childhood memories along with lost toys and innocent dreams. I pressed my back harder against the wall, the world narrowing down to that moment, where everything hinged on the knowing glances exchanged between my nanny and this resurrected figure. "Tom, is that really you?" My nanny exclaimed, the tremor in her voice a striking dissonance to her earlier confidence. She stepped forward, her hands clasping his arms, and a sense of relief washed over her features that made my heart ache. I had never known anyone capable of such profound loyalty. There was history there, thick and layered, between them owned from a past I couldn't penetrate. I felt an involuntary shudder race through me, followed by an overpowering need to flee. But I stayed glued to my spot, my heart battling between rage and a desperate need for understanding. Who was Tom, and why was he here now, cutting through the fragile life my nanny and I had built anew? "Let us talk inside," she said after a heartbeat of lingering silence, and I turned, readying my departure before they could see me. But the sound of a soft purring drew my attention again, proving comforting yet haunting, reminding me of how small moments, once so comforting, felt different in the wake of chaos. Tom stepped over the threshold, and with him came a rush of air laced with nostalgia and unanswered questions. I wasn't prepared as I slipped inward, wanting to exposed and untouched, but a missed opportunity gnawed beneath the surface. I could hear them negotiating their history while the scent of savory sauce filled my nostrils, weaving an intricate tapestry of warmth that now felt suffocating. Moments turned into minutes, truths exchanged without me, and with every passing second, the sound of their voices became an unbearable tension, pulling me deeper into the shadows. I risked another glance, futilely trying to ascertain their intentions through furtive glimpses. The way she laughed, the ease with which she moved around him wasn't the same as she had with me. Their laughter camouflaged the tension hung in the air like smoke after a fire, choking and lingering, feeling caged. I turned to the window, finding solace in the familiar sights of my old neighborhood, now shimmering with evening lights. Even the world outside felt different, a reminder of time slipping through my fingers. As I stood there feeling adrift in a sea of questions, a memory sharpened, a photograph buried under a stack of books showing her and Tom together in a smile from years past a life before me. Before betrayal had punctured our bubble of routine and trust. I could hardly keep my emotions in check. Waves of anger and sadness surged within me while the sweet aroma of the simmering sauce enveloped me like an illusion, taunting the severed bonds of our newfound family unit. What was the truth she had hidden? What life had she clung to outside of mine? Suddenly, the laughter quieted, and the shift in their voices held new weight. "I swear I did everything I could to protect you," my nanny confessed. "I thought I was protecting all of us." "Protecting?" Tom's tone escalated, a mix of disbelief and intensity, reverberating through the kitchen. I leaned in closer, my heart hammering against my ribcage. "You kept me in the dark. Were you ever planning to come back? This isn't just about you anymore." I felt like a ghost, floating on the edges of their intimacy, yearning to reach out yet terrified of what I'd find. Suddenly, my world felt so far away. The love I had for my nanny contorted, morphing into a horrible uncertainty that had me questioning everything. Slightly trembling, I stepped back, retreating from the dance unraveling before me, squeezing my eyes shut as if I could block out the desperation swirling between them. But chaos had a way of revealing itself, and as their words ricocheted through my mind, I caught a fragment of information that shook me to my core. I had no choice, Tom. They needed the money, and there are promises I had to do something. What had she done? What had been so crucial that it would lead her back to him? Each question slammed into the walls of my heart, and each breath felt heavier as apprehension tangled with the undeniable bond one still felt for her. I turned back to the street, the cool air swirling against my skin, offering a fleeting moment of clarity. But as I peered back into the dim kitchen, my resolve wavered as I contemplated whether it was time to confront her to shatter the silence that had begun to suffocate us both. Then a sudden movement caught my eye. From the corner of the window, I spotted something fluttering through the stillness. It was a folded note carried by the wind. I rushed to retrieve it, heart pounding as I unfolded the paper, reading, "I have to get it tomorrow, or it's over for us. Meet me at midnight." My heart dropped, realization crashing over me. There were threads to this unraveling mystery that ran deeper, reeling me back into an emotional whirlwind I didn't fully understand but knew I had to face. Whatever lay ahead, whatever truth the night whispered, I was no longer on the sidelines. I was caught in a web far more complex than I had imagined, and I had to find out what was really at stake before it was too late. The streetlights flickered as dusk descended, painting everything in hues of uncertainty. A sense of determination coursed through my veins as I stepped away from the house, my feet carrying me instinctively down the familiar path to our shared sanctuary, the small cafe where my nanny and I had spent countless afternoons, nestled in laughter over steaming cups of cocoa and slices of cake. Tonight, however, the cafe felt like a ghost of that happiness, conjuring memories I could barely grasp through my tangled emotions. With each step, snippets of their conversation replayed in my mind, the lines drawn between loyalty and betrayal blurring indistinctly. As I reached the cafe, the door creaked open beneath my touch, and the warmth from within enveloped me, starkly contrasting the chill of revelation that danced unsettlingly in my chest. In a corner booth, I found her. staring into her untouched cup as if it held answers to questions she'd never uttered. My heart clenched. This woman, this person whom I'd loved unconditionally, had secrets carved into her very being, and tonight I ached to unravel them. I approached cautiously, a mix of anger and fear coursing through me. "Why did you keep him from me?" The words exploded from my lips, and her head shot up, surprise mingled with guilt in her eyes. I wanted to protect you," she stammered, her voice trembling as it spilled through the cracks of her bravado, unraveling like the seams of an old quilt. "You have to understand what?" I pressed, my heart pounding as I searched for the childlike simplicity of our bond beneath the layers of unspoken words that had begun to suffocate us both. "Understand that I've been living a lie? That everything I thought I knew was built on your silence?" The breathless anger of my heart left me raw. Her deep-set love felt like a thorn buried in my side, compelling, but painful all the same. "The past isn't easy to explain. I thought you deserved a normal life," she began, her hands shifting nervously as if fumbling for the truth beneath her fingertips. "Normal?" I whispered, incredulous, as the enormity of her choices collided with the loneliness that had begun to creep in, invading every corner of my heart. "You think leaving out the most vital parts of my life is normal?" And then she sighed, and in that moment, I saw the flicker of vulnerability reflected in her eyes, a glimpse of the woman I had known, a reminder of the unconditional love that had defined my childhood. He was not just a name. He was part of a life I thought I was leaving behind. "A life that would have led to dangers I wanted to keep you safe from," she said, finally dropping the facade she clutched like a shield. "There were promises I made, things I had to do to survive." An unfamiliar coil tightened within me as I watched her unravel her history like a slithering snake shedding its skin. With each word I felt trapped, drowning in the grief of her past choices and longing for the simplicity of our relationship. Would I ever be able to trust her again? Would I be able to forgive the past that lingered in the air between us? "I feel like I don't even know you anymore," I murmured, wrenching my thoughts from the question that threatened to spiral into resentment. Her gaze fell, sadness on her features tracing every line of worry upon her brow. "I was frightened for you. You cannot begin to understand the lengths I went to secure your future," she whispered, each syllable heavy with a burden I couldn't easily dismiss, yet couldn't fully embrace. Just as I was about to respond, the door swung open, pulling my attention away from the turmoil between us. A figure stepped in, cloaked in shadows, and my pulse quickened inexplicably as I turned to gauge their identity. The muffled sound of hurried footfalls caught my focus, and in that moment, I found the familiarity of the past colliding with the urgency of the continued present. It was Tom, looking just as rugged as he had the moment he darkened our door. The world faded around me as I shifted between the dual realities. Collapsing before me, my nanny, who bore the scars of her decisions, and Tom, a wild card that had now become the focal point of the emotional gamble I had unwittingly entered. "Get your things," he said to my nanny, a quiet command laced with urgency. "We don't have time. I told you it's too late. They'll be here soon." I froze, a wave of cold sweeping through me, gripping my heart as the truth began to settle on my shoulders with a haunting finality. "What are you talking about?" I stammered, various emotions sparking in turn. My world tilted dangerously, and I could feel the ground threatening to give way as I awaited the answer that could shatter everything I had. "We can't stay here, not anymore," Tom replied, glancing back at me, a fleeting moment of regret etched across his features. I couldn't breathe, confusion coiled tightly around my chest. "What does this mean?" I pressed, each word dense with the terror of being cast aside yet again. "Please," my nanny pleaded, eyes wide as she caught the fear reflected in my own. "I had to do this, I thought we had time," but her voice slipped, softening into desperation as she closed the distance between us. "I promise I'll explain everything tomorrow." "Might not come," Tom interrupted, urgency twisting through his words like a blade, cutting through our moments of reprieve. "It's too dangerous." As realization crashed down on me like the thunder of a looming storm, the weight of their lives sprawled out before me, the shadowy figures, the life-threatening secrets, and every dismissive lie I had lived, now threatening to fracture once more. I stood horrified, caught in the intersection of their fear and my growing panic, unsure of who to trust, but knowing one thing with painful clarity. The reality I thought I knew was nothing but a fragile mirage, and I was about to be dragged into a darkness that had always been lingering just beyond my awareness. "What did you promise?" I said, and the question hung ominously in the air, heavier than all the unspoken words exchanged between us, leaving me teetering on the edge of desperation as everything spun out of control. The air hummed with tension, heavy with the unspoken truths that had been buried beneath layers of falsehood. I stood frozen in the heart of that dimly lit cafe, my entire being caught in a whirlwind of fear, confusion, and betrayal. Tom's face was a mask of urgency, his eyes darting toward the door as if it were a refuge from the storm barreling down upon us. My heart raced, threatening to shatter against the walls of unknowing that confined me. "Tell me, please," I implored, desperation clawing at my throat. What promise could possibly justify all of this? Tom's shoulders tightened at my words, and his gaze shifted to my nanny, a silent plea for clarity passed between them. I could almost hear the echo of a deeper history hidden in that glance, their worlds intertwined in ways I had barely begun to comprehend. I felt as if I stood on the precipice of an abyss, about to tumble into truths that would reshape everything I thought I knew. "I promise to keep you safe," she finally whispered, the quivering confession dawning like the first light of day. "But safety comes at a cost, and sometimes it's a cost you can't foresee." I swallowed hard, emotions roiling inside me. "But at what price?" I asked, my voice trembling with the effort of holding back a tide of tears. "You kept me in the dark. Why did you make that decision for me?" "Because I thought I knew better," she replied, anguish bleeding into her tone. "You were just a child, and I was terrified of what the truth could do to you." "Terrified of what?" I shot back, frustration flaring. "Terrified that I might need you? That I might want to understand who I really am?" Tom moved closer to us, urgency tainting his every inch. He stepped in between, his voice more commanding than I had ever heard it. "We don't have time for this now. You need to trust us. Just come with us, and we'll explain everything." Panic seized me. "Trust you? After everything?" I snapped, my pulse pounding wildly through my veins as adrenaline mixed with fear. "You've been a ghost, Tom. How could I possibly trust you?" "Because this isn't just about you," he responded firmly, eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that momentarily quelled my emotions. "You're part of something much bigger than you know. They know about you. They've been watching." His words hit me like ice water, sending a chill coursing through my veins. "They who?" I managed, a sinking feeling clawing at my stomach, the awareness settling in like a cast shadow. "Those I thought I could keep you safe from," Tom replied, his voice barely more than a whisper. "You have to come with us. It's the only way." "No!" I yelled, the words bursting from my throat as I recoiled from the looming shadows beyond the threshold of that cafe, shadows filled with possibility and peril alike. "I want to become a pawn in whatever game you're playing. Stop treating me like I'm helpless." My outburst left a heavy silence in its wake, as if the world had paused, waiting for a response. Tom's eyes softened in a way that embodied every emotion I had ever felt: frustration, anger, concern. He stepped back slightly, allowing my nanny to reach for me. Her gentle hand wrapped around mine, grounding me amidst the chaos-swirled thoughts racing across my mind. "Listen to me," she said softly, her eyes pleading for understanding. "I never intended for any of this to happen. I wanted to protect you. But I see now I have only caused more harm." The vulnerability in her expression made my heart ache, the bitter taste of betrayal mingling with the rawness of my feelings. "Did you ever think maybe I wanted to know the truth? That maybe I could handle the risk?" "Maybe I didn't give you enough credit," she admitted, tears pooling in her eyes. "But it's too late for me to change the past. We have to focus on what's ahead." Before I could respond, the door swung open with a bang as the heavy wind outside rushed in, bringing with it a foreboding energy that sent chills racing down my spine. The cafe seemed to shudder, and the cafe's familiar warmth turned cold. In that instant, a group of figures stepped inside, their intentions cloaked by the dim light. I could see their eyes scanning the room, searching, seeking. My breath hitched in my throat as I recognized one of them, their face etched in sharp angles, familiar in a haunting way. It was someone from the slivers of memory I had of my own past, someone whose presence was almost more dangerous than comforting. "Time's up," he said flatly, locking onto my gaze. "You don't belong here." My heart sank, confusion shrouding my mind in terror. The truth, whatever dreadful revelation awaited, could no longer be delayed or buried. It echoed in the darkness, sweeping through the cafe, calling me into a reality that felt far too vast for my understanding. "I'll do whatever it takes," I heard myself say, my voice steady despite the chaos boiling inside. "But you need to tell me everything. Now." Tom stepped closer, eyes glinting with hope mixed with dread, yet just as the words hung heavy between us, I could feel the looming threat creep closer, shrouding our moment in a thick veil of inevitable chaos. Everything I knew was crumbling, and as the shadows drew closer, I knew the fight for my truth, and possibly my life, had only just begun. The crowd in the cafe stirred uneasily, whispers cascading through the air like leaves rustling in a tense breeze. The figures, sharp and ominous, moved with purpose, their presence amplifying the whirlwind of questions spiraling in my mind. My heart pounded a relentless rhythm of dread, but I felt an undeniable urge to uncover the truth, even if it threatened to unmoor me completely. "Asher," Tom said, breaking through the fog of my terror. "This isn't the place to discuss this. We need to," but the man who resembled a specter from my memory stepped forward, a predatory glint in his eyes as he cut Tom off. "You think you can hide her forever? She's too valuable to your little game." His words dripped with disdain, igniting a fierce protectiveness in me despite my own confusion. "For once, stop treating me like a child," I interjected, my voice gaining strength as I turned to face the man. "If I'm so valuable, then why not just tell me the truth? Why all of this secrecy?" A shadow crossed his face, and for the briefest of moments, I thought I glimpsed a flicker of humanity woven into his otherwise menacing demeanor. "Because you don't understand the weight of what you carry," he retorted, his tone betraying a hint of exasperation. "Knowledge comes with chains, and you're not ready to wear them." "Enough with the cryptic nonsense," I shouted. Everyone in the cafe had turned to watch, eyes wide as fear morphed into a collective clenching of breaths. "Tell me who you are. Tell me what's going on. I demand to know." His lips twisted into a faint, sinister smile. "You really think you're prepared for the truth? Your whole existence is built on lies, and sometimes the truth is worse than fiction." "Please," my nanny urged, stepping toward me. "Asher, we need to leave. We don't have time for this." "Then make them tell me." I screamed in desperation. "I can't just walk away. Not when every part of my life feels like a house of cards about to topple." The flicker returned to the man's eyes, and for the first time, I noticed the hesitation that tamed his aggression. "Your instincts are sharper than your grasp of the truth, kid. It's only a matter of time before you realize that knowledge doesn't just empower you, it can very well dismantle you as well." "There's truth in what he's saying," Tom added, his voice softening, concern lacing every word. "But you have to trust us. We want to protect you, even if we didn't handle things the right way." In that moment, a glimmer of uncertainty sparked in my mind. Desperation surged, but so did a desire for clarity. Protect me? Or control me? Because that's what it feels like right now. Silence enveloped us, a palpable tension drawing tighter like a noose. Then, from behind the man, another figure stepped out of the shadows, seemingly cloaked in half-light. I squinted, heart pounding against my ribcage as recognition washed over me like icy water. It was a woman, regal yet haunted, carrying every thread of my childhood woven into her being. "Asher," she said softly, her voice sending shivers down my spine. "You've grown so much." "Mom?" I breathed, disbelief painting my world in shades of confusion. "Is that really you?" Her eyes glittered with an unshed sadness, carving a rift deep in my chest. "I've been searching for you for so long." But her words felt heavy with implications. "Why were you gone? Why did you leave me?" The pain unraveling in my chest threatened to crush me beneath its weight. "Because the room destabilized. a shockwave of movement erupting as the shadows surged forward. My nanny grabbed my hand, urgency electrifying her grip. "Asher, we have to go." "No, not without answers," I cried, torn between the pull of my mother's familiar presence and the spiraling chaos surrounding me. "Shut up," the man barked, glancing nervously at the door, where another figure had appeared, a dark silhouette, responsibility imbued with a chilling presence. "You're running out of time. All of you." Panic threatened to consume me, my pulse soaring as I felt the boundaries of my world shattering around me. "Please," I screamed, desperation ringing raw in my voice. "I want to run. I can't stand being left in the dark anymore." "You have no idea what you're truly asking for," my mother said, her voice trembling with anguish. "The truth will change everything." In the pandemonium, a flash of white light illuminated the cafe, a surge of brilliance that swallowed our shadows. My heart stopped as a bright omen emerged, crashing down between us and our would-be captors. The force pulsated, flooding the room with a strange warmth, and in that blinding moment of revelation, as the world flickered in shards of light and despair, a single thought screamed inside my mind. Once the truth unfurled, retreating into the familiar darkness would no longer be an option. My fight for understanding had only just begun, and the consequences would resonate far beyond anything I'd ever imagined. The kaleidoscope of light faded, leaving behind the lingering warmth of its embrace, but the chaos in the cafe refused to subside. Tremors of fear coursed through me, intertwined with the threads of hope and confusion. My mother's gaze, filled with both pain and an unyielding resolve, anchored me momentarily amidst the maelstrom of shouts and movements. My nanny, Sophia, tightened her grip on my hand, her expression a blend of urgency and concern. "Asher, we need to move now." The fire in her eyes was almost palpable. I could feel her soul grappling to protect me as much as it was battling against an overwhelming tide of dread. There was no time to ponder what prideful stubbornness could cost me. "Go where?" I snapped, an edge cracking my voice. "You want to keep running?" "I just found her." My heart thudded painfully against my ribs. My mother was right there, yet like an uncharted ocean, so many depths remained unexplored and uncharted. "Let me speak to him," my mother implored, and for a fleeting second, her voice was a balm soothing the tempest within. "Asher, please. Trust me." Her words felt heavy, braided with sorrow and urgency. I wasn't sure if I could trust anyone anymore, but the birth of hope gripped me tightly, a small spark pulling against the clashing waves of distrust. Before I could fully process her request, Tom surged forward, his demeanor protective. "We don't have time for this. Whatever is happening, it's dangerous. You'll have to trust me too." Suddenly, the cafe's door burst open, and a figure clad in black, framed by the late afternoon light, strode in with an authority that compelled the room into a stunned silence. The man looked familiar, with piercing eyes that seemed to understand the darkness of my burdens intimately. "Asher," he commanded, his voice like molten steel. "They're after you." "What do you mean?" I demanded, uncertainty twisting my gut into knots. "They want to control you. That's why I'm here." His eyes darted around the room, assessing. "We don't have much time. Follow me if you want the truth." Before I could respond, Sophia's voice broke through the pall of my uncertainty. "Asher, we have to go." She tore her gaze from my mother, who stood surprisingly still, as if frozen. I could feel the pull between the two women, one holding me with memories woven from happiness and love, the other tethered to the reality of the present, trying to safeguard my future. "Mom, no," she whispered urgently, stepping closer, her voice trembling slightly. "You need to find out why they're looking for you. They will stop at nothing, Asher. I need you to be strong." A storm of emotions erupted within me, twirling off the edges of despair, anger, and fragile hope. "Strong?" I echoed, tears pooling in my eyes. "I feel so small, so lost." "It's okay to feel that way," she said softly, even as the shadows drew closer. "What they want from you could change everything, change the world you know." Distracted by the looming figures, I grasped wildly at her words, hungry for more clarity. "What do you mean? What is so special about me?" After a moment of hesitation, my mother sighed, her expression racked with either regret or fear. You hold the key to knowledge they will risk anything to possess. Knowledge that once belonged to our family. That's why they can't let you leave then. Before I could fully grasp the implications, a flash of metal glinted menacingly in the dim light, followed by a sharp shout. Yelling erupted again as bodies surged towards us, the shadows inching closer and closer. My heart raced once more as I felt Sophia yank on my arm. Asher. No. The gravity of the situation coalesced around me like a fist, squeezing tight. I don't know where to go. Trust me, she urged, her eyes fierce. We'll figure it out together. And with that, we plunged into the fray as the walls of the cafe echoed with chaos. In the scattering rush, I cast one last desperate glance back at my mother, her eyes filled with an emotion I couldn't decipher. It was an invitation and a warning intertwined, a promise that, even wrapped in shadows, love could remain steadfast. Then I saw her mouth move, forming a word that shattered across the distance like glass. Asher. Just before I disappeared into the tumult, those frantic eyes bore a truth I couldn't yet fathom. The doors swung closed behind us and the world slipped into darkness. I turned to follow Sophia, but just as quickly as I had turned away, everything erupted again behind me. An explosion rattled, sending shards of longing and confusion racing through my mind. The truth was closer than ever, it pulsed just out of reach, but the shadows lingered as menacing echoes of a reality I couldn't escape. The streets were alive with a cacophony of footsteps and distant sirens, but all I could hear was the pounding of my heart echoing in my ears. The air felt heavier as Sophia and I dashed around the corner, seeking refuge among the maze of alleyways. It was a strange juxtaposition. The sunlight glimmered on the surfaces around us, yet darkness clung to my spirit, amplifying the whirlwind of confusion and fear that engulfed me. Stay close, Sophia instructed, her voice taut with apprehension. We rounded a corner and ducked behind a large dumpster, the sharp stench of refuse filling the air. I leaned against the cool metal, trying to steady my breath, but my mind raced, a cascade of questions spiraling in unison. What do you mean they're after me? I gasped, tension coursing through me. The daunting weight of my mother's warning loomed large, and with it came a surge of anxiety. Why me? Sophia's eyes softened briefly, but the urgency remained. They believe you have something very important to them. More than just your family's legacy. Something that could reshape everything. Something important? I felt a flicker of defiance rise within me, mingling with my despair. I'm just me. Why would anyone want anything from me? Sophia shook her head, her expression a mix of sympathy and resolve. You're not just anyone, Asher. Your mother was always more protective than she let on. You have power, raw potential that didn't just come from her, but from generations before. The gravity of her words landed heavily, countered by another pang of loss. I thought of my mother's face, her fear. But what if I can't handle it? I managed to murmur, vulnerability cracking my voice. Then we will face it together. There was a warmth in Sophia's voice that felt oddly comforting against the storm of uncertainty. But right now, we need to focus. As we crouched in our makeshift hideaway, glancing around for signs of danger, my mind was torn between the anticipation of discovery and regret over the possibility of losing everything familiar. I needed a solid foundation to latch onto amidst the shifting sands of my life. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted, an unusual stillness settling over the alley. Sophia straightened, her eyes locking intently on the narrow opening we had just rushed through. We need to find somewhere safe. Fast. Without another word, she pulled me along through the veins of the city, weaving past unfamiliar streets until we stumbled upon an unassuming bookstore. The sign swayed gently in the breeze, a beacon of normality amid the chaos enveloping us. There, she whispered urgently, darting toward the entrance. Inside, the comforting scent of old pages and polished wood surrounded us. It was quiet, almost sacred, a temporary escape from the world outside. As we blended into the shelves, hidden amongst forgotten tales, I felt a flicker of hope, the comfort of stories that once carried me away from reality. Sophia's eyes softened, glancing at the titles. This was your sanctuary growing up. The memories they invoked were bittersweet, layered in nostalgia and longing. I remembered the hours spent here, snuggled into corners with characters that became friends. Didn't you think you'd be back here like this? She filled in, a gentle smile gracing her lips. I know it's hard to understand what's happening now, but you're strong enough for this fight. You'll learn how to harness what you have. I promise. But as comforting as her words were, they only ignited a fresh pulse of fear within me. How can I trust anyone? I murmured. With everything that's happening? Even you? Her expression grew solemn, and in that moment, I could sense the weight of her hesitations. Trust is earned, and I don't expect you to fully believe in me right away. But know this: there are people out there who will manipulate you, twist the truth to turn you into something you're not. In that charged silence, my thoughts swirled between wanting to open up but fearing the unknown, while her gaze held understanding. Every moment of vulnerability exposed an inkling of what lay beneath the surface, but the tide of anxiety wouldn't relent. Yet as I took a breath, a small warmth flickered in my chest. Perhaps it was the faintest vestige of hope that, despite the impending storm, I was not completely alone. Then, out of the fragile quiet, a distant crash echoed through the narrow street outside, shattering the fragile calm. My heart leapt, a pulse of panic flooding through me. What was that? I whispered, dread pooling deep in my gut. I don't know, Sophia responded, fear lining her features. But whatever it is, it's close. In that moment, the weight of the chaos we were running from bore down upon me. As the door creaked open slightly, revealing a sliver of light beyond, I felt the ground beneath me give way to uncertainty once more. Whatever was approaching, the walls that had provided brief solace seemed to waver, threatening to close in around us, as I could almost hear the shadows beckoning our fate. And in the shifting darkness, it occurred to me, the past I thought I was striving to unearth was rushing toward me with all the inevitability of a tide, ready to sweep away everything I thought I understood. Adrenaline surged through me as I locked eyes with Sophia, the room suddenly feeling too small, too stifling. The sliver of light at the door, shimmering like a mirage, felt impossibly inviting yet terrifying, as if it held the answers to questions even I wasn't ready to ask. We waited in silence, hearts racing in the thick atmosphere, punctuated only by the distant city sounds bleeding through the door. My breaths grew shallow and rapid, an instinctive reaction to the unknown danger that lurked just beyond our sanctuary. I glanced at Sophia, whose expression was a mixture of worry and resolve, the same look I had seen before, transformed now into something more palpable, something almost radiant. Whatever happens, I'm right here with you, she whispered, her voice laced with an urgency that pulled at me. The door protested as the wind pushed it open, just enough to spill a sliver of the outside world into our fragile safe haven. My body tensed, a primal instinct urging me to hide further into the bookshelf, blending in with the tales nestled in the dusty pages. But somehow, Sophia's calming presence tethered me, allowing me to stand my ground, even as uncertainty wrapped itself around my heart. I in the stillness, as the shadows danced across the wood grain of the floor. An unexpected kindness flickered within me, this contradiction of fear and companionship. I reached for her hand. The warmth of her grip provided an anchor, bringing clarity amid the chaos that felt ever-present. Just as the door swung wider and the chaos outside poured into our calm, we heard the sound of hurried footsteps, heavy and deliberate. "Anyone in there?" A gruff voice called out from the street, cutting through the air, laced with ominous intent. I held my breath, the weight of the world pressing heavily on my chest. The voice belonged to someone who was more predator than prey. The gut feeling that coiled inside me warned of the approaching danger that closed in with every second. I hoped my senses were wrong, but deeper down, the ache of something being irrevocably fractured crept in. The moment stretched, taut as a drawn bowstring, and just as I felt I could bear it no longer, Sophia squeezed my hand. "We can't stay here," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. yet fueled by the determination that I found impossible to fuel. Before I could protest, she took a step back, stealing me from this cocoon of calm they had disrupted. On the count of 3, we run for the back exit, she instructed, her fierce spirit igniting my own. I nodded, adrenaline coursing through my veins. 1, 2, 3. We bolted, racing toward the neglected staircase at the back of the store, our footfalls echoing like thunder in the oppressive silence that followed us. With each breath, my mind flicked between instinct and rationality. I stumbled momentarily, the momentum pulling me along as I grasped at threads of hope amid an impending storm. As we surged past the final shelf, the unyielding weight of the truth pressed against my heart. My mother's warnings danced in my head, an endless loop, only intensifying the thrum of tension that thrummed beneath the surface. It was as if the very essence of my being had become energy caught in a gathering storm. But as we reached the emergency exit, Sophia paused, turning to me with an intensity that seized my breath. "Asher, promise me you won't question your worth, no matter what happens next." "Why?" I asked, the question slipping unbidden from my lips even in the haze of danger. Her eyes glistened, reflecting a depth that momentarily transcended the chaos outside. "Because no matter what lies ahead, it's as much your fight as it is mine. You are stronger than you think, and there's a legacy to protect." I opened my mouth to respond, to try to express my tangled thoughts, but the echoes of footsteps grew louder, like a drumbeat marking the loss of our sanctuary. Time slipped away, and the world outside was relentless, pushing against the thin barrier that separated us from whatever threat lurked beyond the walls of books. "We have to go," she insisted, the urgency in her voice cutting through the fog of uncertainty. I nodded, fear-tinged determination seeping into my heart as her words crystallized with undeniable clarity. Together, we pushed through the emergency exit, bursting into the fresh air outside. The streets lay shrouded in the crisp light of day, already laced with lingering tension. My senses heightened, aware that their chase was far from over. As we hit the pavement and began to run again, I caught a glimpse of something, a flash of familiar features behind a veil of strangers. My heart sank. It couldn't be Sophia. I breathed, pointing toward the figure that seemed to hover between two worlds, their expression unreadable. "Keep running," she urged, but my feet felt anchored, weighed down by the promise of familiarity amidst uncertainty. The figure turned, and in that split second, their eyes met mine, a mirror reflecting a raw emotion, a haunting echo of the past that I had thought safely buried. The person who had once shaped my world and the one who had set the storm in motion stood unequivocally before me, their presence now a piercing truth amid the chaos, and in that moment, amidst the turmoil of unfolding events, I realized that my journey was no longer solely about discovering my power. It was about unearthing the depth of the connections I thought I could easily forget. And the revelation sat heavy on my heart. It felt heartbreakingly impossible, an intertwined fate that could claim us all. The pounding in my chest had become a deafening roar, drowning out the world as I stood frozen, torn between running and facing the inevitable truth. The figure lingering behind the veil of strangers was my mother, no doubt about it. I released a breath I didn't know I'd been holding, the force of it hitching against the weight of my emotions. All at once, confusion and pain spiraled through me, a torrent of questions crashing over the carefully constructed barriers of my heart. "Asher, please." Sophia's voice broke through the haze of my confusion. "We need to keep moving." But my feet felt cemented to the pavement, unwilling to leave behind the weight of shared memories or the flicker of warmth that ignited at the sight of my mother. I had thought the haunting shadows of betrayal meant I would never see her again. And yet here she was, alive and real, defying all conventions of fate by standing before me. "Mom," I shouted, the word bursting from my lips, raw and desperate. In that moment, all the hurt, all the unanswered questions poured out, creating a bridge across the distance that years had stitched together. "You left me." Her eyes widened, and a mixture of shock and sorrow crossed her face before determination hardened her features. "Asher, I know," I interrupted, propelled by a tidal wave of pent-up frustration. You don't get to explain anything now. You vanished, and I've spent my entire life trying to understand why. The reality of our situation didn't vanish with my harsh words. It loomed over us like a thunderstorm ready to unleash its splendor. I glanced back toward Sophia, who stood rooted to the earth beside me, her own uncertainty mirroring the tumult within me. But my mother approached, each step tentative yet resolute. It's not about running, Asher. You need to know. You're right, it's not. I snapped, throwing my hands up in exasperation. What is there to even discuss after all this? You kept me in the dark, like I was some fragile secret. What I did was meant to keep you safe. She urged, urgency flecking her tone. You don't understand the danger. You are in the kind of darkness that doesn't just affect one person's life. This was never just about me, Asher. The truth resonated through my core, colliding with my own sense of betrayal. You could have trusted me, should have trusted me enough to give me the chance. I spat, words sharp enough to slice through the tension that weighed heavily on us. Being a parent means sometimes withholding the truth to protect your child, she said, stepping closer. I never wanted to hurt you, but I could foresee what would happen if you learned of your lineage too soon. In the rawness of those words, a flicker of comprehension ignited within my heart, sending tendrils of anguish curling around the edges of bitterness. I could see the battle played out behind her eyes, years of defensive love intertwined with the regret of choices made on behalf of someone who deserved a chance to choose for himself. The chaos of the outside world seemed to fade into white noise as I searched her gaze for answers, questions flaring up like sparks. Why now? Why show up when it feels too late? Because you're not safe. The urgency hung in her every word, vibrating with the weight of unshed tears. They want you, Asher. You carry something they will stop at nothing to possess. What do I carry? I pressed, fear and curiosity blending in a volatile concoction. What exactly am I? Just as she was about to respond, shadows flickered in the corner of my eye, and I felt the tremor of darkness creeping closer. The moment was pressing, suffused with the tearful promise of reconciliation intertwined with the urgency of our escape. Tom burst into view, his expression contorted with determination. We need to go now. They're coming. Fear lanced through me, a primordial response pulling me back into reality. My body moved on autopilot, every instinct signaling for survival. It was as if every beat of my heart synchronized with the realization. The fight for understanding was eclipsed by the need for safety. Come with me. Please, I uttered, my gaze flickering back to my mother, desperation clawing at my chest. I was teetering on the edge of two worlds, the one built from whispers of warmth and love, and the other threatening to engulf us in shadows anew. We need to stick together. And in that instant, everything shifted. My mother's gaze met mine, a mingling of longing and disquiet. Asher, I want to, but the moment hung heavy, forever suspended in the air as the shadows of uncertainty encroached upon us. Stop talking, Tom insisted, urgency shaking him, pulling me and Sophia closer toward the alley entrance. I could feel the heartbeat of time thundering against my ears, demanding a choice. I looked at my mother one last time, a poignant moment cut through the din of chaos. I saw her, vulnerable and fierce, willing to take on whatever storm awaited us. Together, I whispered. We go together. Before I could hear her answer, we dashed through the exit into the chaos, the heartbeat of the city pounding beneath our feet. As we raced into an uncertain future, we wove closer together, allowing trust to bridge the gaps that had formed between us. This was not the end of our story, but the beginning of weaving shattered pieces into something new. The revelation of truth felt both heavier and lighter, the very air crackling with possibility as we ventured beyond the shadows that once defined us. The threads of our fates entwined, embracing the chaotic beauty of being alive and not alone. I and the echoes of our flight, I felt the warmth of connection pull me forward, igniting the hope of a life defined not just by secrets, but by the love that had endured the depths of darkness. The journey ahead loomed like an open book, pages fluttering eagerly, and in the heart of it all, I knew one thing with resolute clarity. No matter what, I was ready to reclaim my truth, and as the dawn broke beyond us, illuminating the path forward, I realized, sometimes, The greatest revelations aren't hidden within the shadows. They bloom in the light of understanding, where forgiveness heals and love fortifies against the encroaching darkness. Together, I promised again, a steadfast vow echoing in my heart as we stepped into the awakening dawn, ready for whatever awaited us next.